The Whispering Pines was a very, very old forest. Some said it was as old as time itself. The pine trees stood so tall, like green giants, their tops tickling the clouds. Sunlight found it hard to reach the forest floor in some places. It came down in soft, golden beams, dancing on the ferns and moss. Little rabbits with twitchy noses played there. Squirrels chattered as they leapt from branch to branch. A magical feeling filled the air, like a secret, happy song. The air itself felt alive, humming with old stories. The ground was soft and springy, covered with a thick carpet of pine needles from many, many years. This magical feeling was everywhere in the Whispering Pines. It felt as if the ancient trees were always watching. They were like kind, sleepy guardians, keeping everything safe and sound. The sounds of the forest were special too. You could hear the birds singing their prettiest tunes. You could hear the little stream gurgling over smooth, round stones. But underneath all that there was a softer sound. It was like a gentle sigh or a quiet hum, the forest's own music. The light in the forest changed all day long. Sometimes it was bright, sometimes it was shadowy, painting new pictures on the leaves. It was a true sanctuary, a peaceful place far from the noisy world. Liana was a young woman who lived near the edge of this wonderful forest. Although she was young, she seemed to hold an old, deep wisdom in her kind eyes. She loved the Whispering Pines with all her heart. Every single day, Liana would walk among the giant trees. She moved so quietly, like a little fawn, careful not to disturb anything. She did not feel like a visitor in the woods. She felt like she belonged there, like one of the trees or one of the little birds. She carried a feeling of calm with her, a quiet joy that matched the peace of the ancient woods. Liana understood the forest in a very special way. It truly seemed as if the trees and the wind whispered their secrets to her. She knew all the hidden paths that wound like green ribbons through the trees. She knew which berries were sweet and safe to eat. She knew which leaves and roots could help if someone was poorly. This knowledge didn't come from reading books. It came from listening with her ears and with her heart. The tall, strong pine trees were her best friends and her wisest teachers. She knew their rustling leaves were not just noise. It was their way of talking to her, sharing their ancient stories. Liana was always very humble and showed great respect for the Whispering Pines. She knew the forest was a precious gift. She never took more than she truly needed. If she picked a pretty wildflower, she would whisper a little thank you to the plant. If she gathered berries, she always left plenty for the birds and small animals. She saw herself as a friend to the forest, a gentle caretaker. Her actions were always thoughtful, always kind. She tried to help any little creature in trouble. She treated every leaf, every stone, every tiny insect with care. Because Liana loved the forest so much, she helped it to thrive. If a winter storm brought down an old tree, Liana would plant tiny new saplings in its place. She wanted new trees to grow tall and strong for the future. She often cleared little streams that had become blocked by fallen leaves or branches. This helped the clear water to flow freely, bringing a drink to all the thirsty plants and animals. Sometimes a little bird might fall from its nest. Liana would gently pick it up and help it find its way back to its family. Her days were full of these small, kind acts which made the whole forest healthier and happier. One day, a man named Kyle came to the Whispering Pines. He was a woodcutter, very strong and sturdy. He carried a big, sharp axe over his shoulder. Its blade glinted in the sunlight. Kyle looked at the forest, but his eyes saw things very differently from Liana's. He did not see the magic or the beauty in the same way. He saw tall, straight trees, and he thought of timber. He thought of cutting them down to make planks of wood. He was a man who wanted many things. He dreamed of building a big house and having lots of money. The forest, to him, was just a way to get what he wanted. Kale could not hear the gentle whispers of the forest that Liana loved so much. When the leaves rustled in the breeze, he just thought the wind was blowing. The ancient wise trees were nothing more than wood to him, waiting to be chopped. He was quite deaf to the forest's gentle soul. His mind was full of thoughts about cutting and selling. These thoughts of greed were like a thick fog. They stopped him from seeing the wonderful, delicate patterns of life all around him. He did not understand how everything in the forest was connected. He only dreamt of the sound of falling trees and the jingle of coins in his pocket. Then a very difficult time came to the whispering pines. A great dryness, a terrible drought settled over the land. The sun, usually so kind, became a fiery ball in the sky. It blazed down day after day, week after week, with no sign of rain. The forest, which was always so green and full of life, began to change. The bright colours started to fade, the happy sounds grew quieter. The rich dark earth turned pale and began to crack open. A heavy, worried feeling spread through the trees and amongst the creatures. The air, usually so fresh, felt thick and still. The drought had a dreadful impact on everything in the whispering pines. The little streams that chuckled and sang as they flowed now became tiny trickles. Soon even those trickles dried up, leaving behind stony, dusty beds. The leaves on the proud pine trees curled up at the edges and turned a sad, brittle brown. The little animals, like the rabbits and deer, grew weak. They wandered about, desperately searching for water to drink. Even the birds sang less often, their tunes tinged with sorrow. The magical whispers of the forest faded into faint, tired sighs. It was a time of great trouble and suffering. Liana felt the forest's terrible thirst as if it were her own. Her heart ached with sadness for the suffering trees and the poor, thirsty animals. She walked through the parched woods day after day. Her usually light footsteps felt heavy. She looked everywhere for any sign of water, any patch of damp earth. She listened harder than she had ever listened before. She hoped the ancient trees in their deep wisdom might tell her what to do. Their whispers were so faint now, like the weakest breath. But Liana strained to hear, determined to understand their silent pleas for help. Kale, the woodcutter, saw the drought too. He noticed the dry, drooping trees. But his thoughts were very different from Liana's. He did not feel sadness for the suffering forest. Instead, a flicker of excitement lit up in his eyes. He thought that the dry, weakened trees would be much easier to chop down. He believed the brittle wood would snap more readily under his axe. His greed grew stronger with this idea. He imagined he could clear large parts of the forest very quickly now. He showed no concern for the dying plants or thirsty creatures. He only thought of how he could profit from this disaster. He began to sharpen his axe with even greater energy. Liana knew she had to find water. She remembered the faintest whisper from the oldest, wisest pine tree in the forest. It had spoken of a secret place, a hidden spring, lost to memory. With this tiny thread of hope, she began her search. She journeyed deep into a forgotten part of the whispering pines. She followed an overgrown animal trail that was almost invisible. The air was hot and still. The forest seemed to be holding its breath, watching her, waiting. Liana felt tired, but she did not give up. She was determined to find the life-giving water the ancient tree had told her about. After many long hours of searching, when she was almost ready to despair, Liana saw something. It was a small circle of moss-covered stones hidden beneath a tangle of dry ferns. Her heart gave a little leap. With her gentle hands, she began to clear away the stones and the old dead leaves. She dug carefully into the cool earth she found underneath. It was very slow and tiring work in the baking heat, but Liana did not stop. Suddenly, she felt a dampness. A tiny trickle of water appeared, then another. Soon a small, clear spring of fresh water began to bubble up from the ground. Pure relief and quiet joy washed over Liana. Meanwhile, Kale was working hard in another part of the suffering forest. He swung his heavy axe with all his strength. He was determined to cut down as many trees as possible, but the drought-stricken wood was not as easy to work with as he had imagined. It was indeed very dry, but this made it incredibly brittle. Sometimes a tree would shatter into useless pieces when it fell. Other times the wood was so hard and unyielding that it quickly made his sharp axe blade dull. He toiled and sweated, but his piles of good usable timber grew very slowly. The forest, even in its weakness, seemed to fight against his greedy efforts. Frustration began to bubble up inside him. The cool water from Liana's hidden spring began to spread. It flowed out, making the thirsty earth damp and dark once more. It trickled towards the nearest trees, and their parched roots drank it eagerly. Slowly, miraculously, life began to return to the whispering pines. The drooping brown needles on the pines started to look a little greener. The animals found the spring and drank their fill. The forest's gentle whispers grew stronger day by day, filled with new strength and soft songs of gratitude for Liana. Kyle, angry and defeated, with very little timber to show for his harsh work, finally left the woods. The whispering pines, saved by Liana's respect and care, flourished once more. Its magical song was now clearer and more beautiful than ever, a lesson for all who would listen.